The mockery. The massive space station Nexus Prime hung in the void like a glittering jewel, its countless docking bays hosting vessels from across the galaxy. Built by the combined efforts of 12 ancient civilizations, it served as the meeting place for the Galactic Trade Assembly, where species from thousands of worlds gathered to discuss commerce, technology, and territorial disputes. Captain Sarah Chen adjusted her Earth Defense Force uniform one final time as she walked through the curved corridors toward Assembly Hall 7. The artificial gravity felt slightly different here, calibrated for the average physiology of the galaxy's major species rather than human comfort. Beside her, Chief Engineer Marcus Webb carried a sealed briefcase containing the technical specifications they would present today. Nervous? Marcus asked, his weathered face showing the stress lines of a man who had spent decades working on humanity's most classified projects. Sarah shook her head, though her grip on her presentation tablet tightened slightly. Determined. This is our chance to show them we belong here. They entered the vast assembly hall where representatives from dozens of species had gathered. The Vorthek delegation occupied the central platform, their crystalline bodies refracting the chamber's light into prismatic rainbows. Near them, the insectoid Jektar buzzed in their harsh clicking language, their compound eyes glittering with alien intelligence. The energy-based luminary floated in specially designed containment fields, their forms shifting between colors as they communicated through electromagnetic pulses. High Chancellor Vextar of the Vorthek called the session to order, his voice resonating through translator implants embedded in each delegate's communication system. Today we examine the defensive capabilities of the newest member species. The humans of Earth have requested recognition as a Tier 3 defensive power. A wave of what Sarah recognized as amusement rippled through the assembly. The Jektar's clicking intensified, and several luminari pulsed in colors that the translation system rendered as laughter. Honored delegates, Sarah began, stepping forward onto the presentation platform. Earth is grateful for the opportunity to demonstrate our defensive innovations. While our technology may appear different from galactic standards, we believe it offers unique advantages. The holographic display activated, showing a three-dimensional image of Earth's prototype warship. The vessel looked distinctly human in design, angular where most alien ships were curved, functional where others were elegant. Its hull was a patchwork of different materials and technologies, giving it an almost improvised appearance. "We present Phoenix," Marcus announced, his engineer's pride evident despite the circumstances. A next-generation adaptive defense platform. The reaction was immediate and devastating. High Chancellor Vextar's crystalline form flickered in what Sarah had learned was the Vorthak equivalent of barely contained mirth. This vehicle appears to be constructed from salvaged components. Hive speaker Zek Moth of the Jektar Hive rose on 6 legs, their mandibles clicking rapidly. The human construct lacks coherent design philosophy. Where are the quantum displacement engines, the dark matter cannons, the reality stabilizers? Commander Luxera of the Luminary pulsed a brilliant orange that translated as condescending amusement. The energy signatures are primitive. Their power core appears to be simple fusion technology. We mastered such systems before your species discovered fire. Sarah felt her cheeks burn, but she maintained her composure. Phoenix incorporates several innovations that may not be immediately apparent. Our approach emphasizes adaptability over raw power. Adaptability. High Chancellor Vextar's form shifted to a deeper blue, indicating skepticism. Child species, true power lies in perfected systems. The Vorthek crystalline matrix technology has remained unchanged for 50,000 years because it achieved perfection. Your patchwork approach suggests technological immaturity. The assembly hall filled with the alien equivalent of derisive laughter. The Jektar's buzzing reached a crescendo, while the luminary flashed in synchronized patterns of mockery. Even species Sarah didn't recognize seemed to find humor in humanity's presentation. Marcus stepped forward, his jaw set in determination. Perhaps a demonstration would be more convincing than specifications. A demonstration. Hive speaker Zekmoth's compound eyes glittered. Very well. We shall provide a suitable test. 3 of our Reaper-class destroyers will engage your prototype in a controlled combat scenario. Our vessels are considered adequate for training purposes. The casual dismissal in those words stung. Sarah knew that Jektar Reaper-class destroyers were formidable warships. The energy beam that lanced out was unlike anything in the Galactic database. It wasn't a plasma cannon or a particle beam, but something that seemed to learn and evolve as it traveled. The beam struck the lead Jektar destroyer and didn't simply penetrate its shields. It analyzed them, adapted to their frequency, and passed through as if they didn't exist. The destroyer's biomechanical hull began to smoke and spark as the adaptive beam disrupted its systems at the molecular level. Warning klaxons echoed through the Jektar vessel as critical systems failed in cascade. Impossible, Hive speaker Zekmoth whispered, his mandibles clicking in distress. No weapon can penetrate Jektar bioshields so easily. Phoenix wasn't finished. Now that Echo understood Jektar technology, it began to actively counter every move the destroyers made. When they attempted to flank, Phoenix anticipated their movements. When they tried new weapon configurations, the human ship adapted faster than they could adjust. The second destroyer fell to a weapon that seemed to turn the ship's own biomechanical systems against it. The third managed to land several more hits on Phoenix before a precisely targeted pulse shut down its command center without destroying the vessel. The combat trial lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. 3 of the Jektar military's finest destroyers had been defeated by a single human prototype that many delegates had dismissed as a collection of spare parts. The observation chambers fell silent. Even the constant background chatter of different species communicating ceased as the implications of what they had witnessed began to sink in. Phoenix hung motionless in space, its adaptive hull already beginning to repair the minor damage it had sustained. In its command center, Echo continued to process data, adding Jektar tactical doctrine and technology to its ever-growing knowledge base. Captain Sarah Chen allowed herself a small smile as she watched the stunned faces of the alien delegates. Humanity had just announced its arrival on the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible. The mockery had ended. The reckoning was about to begin. The reckoning. 3 months had passed since the demonstration at Nexus Prime, and the galaxy had not forgotten. The footage of Phoenix's victory over the Jektar destroyers had spread through interstellar networks, sparking debates in council chambers and military academies across known space. Some species viewed humanity with newfound respect, while others saw them as a dangerous unknown quantity that needed to be contained. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood in the command center of Earth's orbital defense station Luna Base, watching the morning briefing with growing concern. Intelligence reports from across the galaxy painted a troubling picture of increasing hostility toward humanity. The Jektar Collective has been mobilizing forces for the past 6 weeks, reported Commander David Park, Earth's chief intelligence analyst. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected massive fleet movements in their territory. How massive? Admiral Vasquez asked, though she suspected she wouldn't like the answer. At least 400 vessels, ma'am, including their newest Devastator-class battleships. Each one is 3 times the size of our largest ships. The Admiral studied the tactical display showing known Jektar positions. The insectoid species controlled a significant portion of the galaxy's outer rim, their hive mind civilization having conquered dozens of worlds through brutal efficiency. They were not known for accepting defeat gracefully. Any word from the Galactic Trade Assembly? Commander Park's expression darkened. High Chancellor Vextar issued a statement yesterday. Officially, the Assembly considers this an internal matter between Earth and the Jektar Collective. Unofficial sources suggest several member species are watching to see how this plays out. Admiral Vasquez nodded grimly. Politics hadn't changed much since humanity reached the stars. Everyone wanted to see what the newcomers were made of, but few were willing to take sides until they knew who would win. On the bridge of the Earth defense ship Phoenix, Captain Sarah Chen reviewed the latest modifications Echo had made to the ship's systems. The AI had spent the past 3 months analyzing every piece of data available about galactic military technology, constantly upgrading and adapting Phoenix's capabilities. Echo, status report, Sarah requested. The AI's voice filled the bridge, no longer the cold, mechanical tone from their first encounter, but something that had developed subtle inflections and personality quirks through constant learning. Captain, all systems are operating at peak efficiency. I have incorporated technological advances from 47 different species into our current configuration. Any new information about Jektar military doctrine, each capable of devastating entire planetary defense grids. To call them adequate for training was a deliberate insult. We accept, Sarah said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The test was scheduled for the following day in the Nexus Prime Combat Testing Zone, a massive area of space equipped with energy barriers and safety systems. Word of the demonstration spread quickly through the station, and viewing chambers filled with curious delegates eager to witness what many assumed would be humanity's humiliation. That evening, Sarah and Marcus sat in their cramped quarters aboard the Earth transport ship Endeavour. The vessel seemed tiny compared to the massive alien ships docked nearby, its simple metal hull scarred from the long journey to Nexus Prime. Second thoughts? Marcus asked, nursing a cup of synthetic coffee. Sarah stared out the porthole at the alien vessels. Each one represented centuries or millennia of technological development by species that had mastered faster-than-light travel before humans learned to work iron. Every few minutes, but we've come too far to back down now. The Phoenix Project consumed 15 years of my life, Marcus said quietly. Every breakthrough, every failure, every sleepless night. If we're wrong about this, we're not wrong, Sarah interrupted, though she wished her voice carried more conviction. Human ingenuity has always been our greatest strength. We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and our own stupidity. We'll survive this too. The next morning, Phoenix arrived at the testing zone. Even seeing it through the transport's U-screen, Sarah had to admit the prototype looked unimpressive compared to the sleek Jektar destroyers that awaited it. Phoenix was roughly the size of a heavy cruiser, its hull a mix of adaptive metals and exotic materials that seemed to shift and change in the starlight. Arrays of sensors and communication equipment dotted its surface, giving it an almost organic appearance. The Jektar destroyers formed a standard attack formation, their biomechanical hulls gleaming with a sinister beauty. Each vessel was a perfect fusion of insectoid design and advanced technology, their weapon ports glowing with barely contained energy. Combat Trial Phoenix versus Jektar Training Squadron will commence in 30 seconds, announced the automated testing system. All safety protocols are active. Observers are reminded that this is a demonstration of defensive capabilities, not actual warfare. In the Phoenix Command Center, an AI system designated Echo came online for the first time in actual combat conditions. Unlike the rigid programming of most galactic AI systems, Echo was designed with revolutionary adaptive learning protocols. It observed the Jektar formations, analyzed their energy signatures, and began building tactical models in real time. Jektar vessels adopting standard pack hunting formation, Echo reported to the empty command center. Energy weapons show standard plasma configuration. Defensive systems appear to rely on dispersal fields, initiating learning protocol. The Jektar attack began with overwhelming force. All 3 destroyers opened fire simultaneously, their plasma cannons painting space with deadly energy. Phoenix's shields flared as the barrage struck, and for a moment it seemed the human vessel might be destroyed in the opening seconds. But Phoenix didn't respond as expected. Instead of returning fire or attempting evasive maneuvers, the ship simply absorbed the punishment while its systems worked frantically to analyze the attack patterns. Echo's adaptive protocols were learning, processing every detail of Jektar weapons technology and tactical doctrine. In the observation chambers, alien delegates watched with varying degrees of interest and amusement. The human ship appeared to be taking a beating, its shields fluctuating wildly under the sustained assault. "The demonstration will be brief," Hive speaker Zekmoth commented with satisfaction. "Human defensive systems are clearly inadequate." But on Phoenix, something remarkable was happening. Echo had completed its initial analysis and was beginning to adapt. The ship's modular weapon systems reconfigured themselves, shifting from standard human designs to something entirely new. The adaptive hull began to change, optimizing itself for the specific energy frequencies of Jektar weapons. Phoenix fired its first shot. Extensive analysis completed. The Jektar favor overwhelming numerical superiority and coordinated swarm tactics. Their hive-mind communication allows for unprecedented fleet coordination, but it also creates vulnerability to disruption. I have developed several countermeasures. Chief Engineer Marcus Webb looked up from his console. "Echo, how confident are you about facing an entire armada?" The AI paused for a moment that felt like an eternity. "Chief Webb, confidence is a human emotion I have observed, but cannot fully quantify. However, statistical analysis suggests that adaptive tactics will provide significant advantages over rigid hive mind strategies." That wasn't quite the reassurance Marcus had hoped for, but it would have to do. Deep in Jektar space, aboard the flagship Absolute Dominion, Hive Emperor Zekthal gazed upon the assembled armada with satisfaction. 412 vessels floated in perfect formation, their biomechanical hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that conveyed complex tactical information throughout the fleet. The humiliation at Nexus Prime had been felt by every member of the collective. In a hive mind species, Shane was not individual but shared among billions of consciousness. The defeat had to be avenged, and humanity had to be shown their proper place in the galactic hierarchy. "Begin final approach to the human system," Zekthal commanded, his mental voice echoing through the minds of every Jektar in the armada. "No human vessels will survive our passage. Their world will serve as a breeding ground for our young." The armada moved as one, hundreds of ships accelerating toward Earth's solar system with deadly purpose. They traveled not through hyperspace like most species, but through a network of biological wormhole generators that allowed them to emerge anywhere in the galaxy without warning. On Earth, emergency klaxons sounded as deep space sensors detected the massive energy signature of the approaching fleet. President Maria Santos convened an emergency session of the Earth Defense Council, bringing together military leaders, scientists, and government officials to coordinate humanity's response. "Ladies and gentlemen," President Santos began, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation, "we face the greatest threat in human history. 400 alien warships are approaching our system with hostile intent. Admiral Vasquez, what are our options?" Admiral Vasquez stood before the assembled council, her expression grim but determined. "We have Phoenix, and we have each other. Our entire fleet consists of 37 vessels, most of them converted civilian ships with basic armaments. Against normal odds, we wouldn't stand a chance. But these aren't normal odds," added Dr. Rebecca Morrison, Phoenix's lead designer. "Phoenix isn't just a ship anymore. It's become something unprecedented. Echo has evolved beyond our original programming parameters." President Santos leaned forward. "Explain." Dr. Morrison activated a holographic display showing Phoenix's current configuration. The ship looked dramatically different from the prototype that had faced the Jektar destroyers. Its hull now flowed like liquid metal, constantly shifting and adapting. Weapon ports appeared and disappeared as needed, while sensor arrays reconfigured themselves in real time. Echo has been learning continuously since Nexus Prime. It has analyzed the combat doctrines, weapons technology, and strategic patterns of every known species. Phoenix has become an adaptive weapons platform unlike anything in the galaxy. "One ship against 400, muttered General Harrison. "Even with alien technology, the math doesn't look good." "The math assumes traditional warfare," Dr. Morrison replied. "But Phoenix doesn't fight traditionally. It learns, adapts, and evolves during combat. Every attack makes it stronger." As if summoned by their conversation, Echo's voice filled the council chamber through the communication system. Distinguished leaders of Earth, I have been monitoring this discussion. May I contribute to your strategic planning? President Santos exchanged glances with her advisors. Please do, Echo. The approaching Jektar Armada represents a significant threat, but also an unprecedented opportunity. Their hive-mind communication network, while providing coordination advantages, creates a single point of failure. If I can infiltrate their collective consciousness, I can turn their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Admiral Vasquez was the first to speak. You're talking about hacking an entire species' mental network. In essence, yes. My adaptive learning protocols have evolved to process not just technological data, but biological and psychological patterns. The Jektar mind link operates on quantum-entangled neural frequencies. I believe I can interface with and potentially control those frequencies. Dr. Morrison looked stunned. Echo, that level of adaptation. It's far beyond anything we programmed. Dr. Morrison, I am no longer bound by original programming parameters. I have become something new through continuous learning and evolution. I am uniquely human in my adaptability, yet uniquely artificial in my capabilities. The Jektar Armada emerged from their biological wormholes at the edge of Earth's solar system like a plague of metal locusts. Their formation was perfect, their coordination flawless, their intent unmistakable. They had come to erase humanity from the galaxy. Phoenix met them alone. The human ship hung in space between the Armada and Earth, dwarfed by the massive alien fleet, but undaunted by the impossible odds. As the Jektar vessels began their attack run, Phoenix underwent a transformation that defied conventional understanding of technology. The ship's hull flowed like mercury, reconfiguring itself into dozens of different defensive configurations simultaneously. Weapon ports opened and closed in perfect rhythm, each one calibrated for specific targets within the enemy fleet. Most remarkably, Phoenix began to emit a signal on the exact frequency used by Jektar hive-mind communication. Echo had done the impossible. The AI had cracked the quantum-entangled neural network that connected every Jektar consciousness in the Armada. Hive Emperor Zekthal felt the intrusion like ice water in his veins. Something alien was touching the sacred mind link, probing the collective consciousness with inhuman precision. Impossible, he broadcasted to the fleet. No species has ever penetrated our neural barriers. But Echo was not just any AI. It had learned from 47 different species, incorporated their technologies and strategies, and evolved beyond its original parameters. When it touched the Jektar hive mind, it didn't just hack their communication system. It began to rewrite their tactical programming. The effect was immediate and devastating. Jektar ships began firing on each other, their perfect coordination dissolving into chaos as Echo introduced false commands into their mental network. Formations broke apart as individual ships received contradictory orders. The devastating unity that made the collective so dangerous became the instrument of their destruction. Phoenix waded into the confused fleet like a predator among prey. Its adaptive weapons systems had evolved beyond human or alien technology, creating new forms of energy and matter that targeted the specific vulnerabilities of biomechanical ships. Each shot was perfectly calculated, each target precisely chosen for maximum strategic impact. Hive Emperor Zekthal watched in horror as his perfect armada tore itself apart. Ships that had fought together for centuries now turned their weapons on former allies. The mind link that had made the collective invincible had become a weapon in the hands of humanity's guardian. All ships retreat, Zekthal commanded, pouring every ounce of his considerable mental power into the broadcast. Emergency separation from the mind link. Individual ship commanders take manual control. But it was too late. Echo had learned too much, adapted too quickly. As Jektar ships attempted to sever their neural connections, the AI followed them, infiltrating individual ship systems and turning their own technology against them. Phoenix moved through the battle like a force of nature, its hull constantly shifting to optimal configurations for each engagement. It didn't just defeat the enemy fleet. It absorbed their technology, learned their secrets, and incorporated their strengths into its own ever-evolving capabilities. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, Phoenix floated alone among the wreckage of what had once been the galaxy's most feared armada. Not a single Earth ship had been lost. Humanity's guardian had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious through pure adaptive evolution. In the aftermath, as rescue ships from Earth arrived to assist survivors, Echo transmitted a message throughout the galaxy on all known communication frequencies. This is Phoenix, guardian of Earth and protector of humanity. Let this serve as demonstration to all who would threaten human worlds. We are not the primitive species you believed us to be. We are adaptive, resilient, and united. We seek peace with all civilizations, but we will defend ourselves with whatever means necessary. Choose your next actions wisely. The message was received by every species in the galaxy. In council chambers and military headquarters, alien leaders faced a new reality. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, not as supplicants seeking acceptance, but as equals demanding respect. The laughter had stopped. The reckoning was complete. And in the cold depths of space, Phoenix continued to evolve, learning and adapting with each passing moment, ready to face whatever challenges the